Thank you. Thank you. And thanks everyone for being here with us today at the Visas.AI webinar slash collab. Today we're collaborating, me and attorney Jon Velie, on the P visa. To get started, John, I'll give you the mic. If you could just introduce yourself one more time to those joining us just now. And we'll get started on the P visa through Visas.AI.
Great. Thanks, Pierre. Appreciate it. Jon Velie, lead counsel of Velie Law Firm. We also have Velie Global Law Firm. We have offices in Oklahoma, Dallas, attorneys around the country. We have an office in India as well. And we're expanding. So having a lot of fun. One of the things we like to do in our brand promises is it's all about relationships, but then strategy. Strategy is key to winning these cases. That's what we're doing here. We love to give that strategy to you guys to help. Strategy is based on knowledge. Knowledge is the law, right? So you want to argue as a lawyer, even though case or adjudicators often aren't lawyers and they don't argue like lawyers. But what we're going to do is help you utilize the law and strategies to come up with good concepts that win. We call them winning strategies. And we do that through technology. Visas.AI is what helps us build our visas out. We've carved strategy sessions for about 100 different types of visas. And we're going to show you some today on the P1. And then it's briefing, right? Write briefs and not just cover letters that identify issues and indicate to immigration how your facts meet the law and the strategies you'd like to do that. So we started last week on the P1 visa. What I'll do today is I'll share my screen. We'll go look at the P1 we started creating in our Visas.ai platform. I'll quickly review what we talked about and then finish up today and go from there, okay?
So very well. As you're doing that, John, this is in no way a tutorial on how to submit a P visa, correct? This is your process using technology, but it still requires an attorney.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you can't replace attorneys with technology. All you can do is make them better. So let me take it through. So this is Visas.ai platform for pro athletes. What we have is our P1 visa for that. So pro athlete is from Australia. I put notes. It's a good case. We're ready to proceed. We set the contract to Cookie Monster. He is the monster truck owner of Pro Athlete. Pro Athlete is a monster truck pilot. Pro Athlete won his basic background. He's won the Aussie Monster Truck Jam in January of 2023. He was selected to the Australian National Monster Truck Team for the World Championships in 2023. Pro Athlete holds the record for highest jump in a monster truck in 2016. There's press on his records, achievements in the Sydney Morning Herald, segment on Mr. Athlete on ABC. And he was covered in a segment of Australian Broadcasting Company's morning show, Good Morning Australia. So that's his background. And sometimes we'll write that up first before we go in. He's coming to compete in Feld Motorsports Monster Jam competition. It's owned by Disney, and it's the highest level of pro monster truck competitions in the U.S. and the world. That's important. The P visa, they need to be competing at the highest level. Minor leagues can get P visas only if they're affiliated with major leagues. So the New York Yankees minor league system would be able to get it. But the Can-Am competition, which is a minor league in baseball that's not affiliated with the major leagues, could not use the P visa. He has a 3-year itinerary to compete in the Monster Jam competitions. That's good. He could go up to 5 years on this, but we can only do as long as his contract's going to allow him to do it. So his would be 3. We can use an agent. An agent can allow pro athlete to do other things that are ancillary and related. That's not very broad in Ps. Matter of fact, we battled USCIS and they adopted a decision of ours after they denied it, where we were trying to say that coaches and those who were playing with guests at tennis clubs were ancillary and related. I think that's the case. I think it could be litigated, but we didn't litigate that. And so you really want to stay exclusively in competition. And but you can do endorsements, just not coaching as endorsement. So that allows an athlete who's a pro basketball player to have an endorsement agreement with Gatorade, even though that's not really close to the industry like coaching is, but that's where they've drawn the line. So you should know that. You're going to have a hard time getting a P visa approved if you're trying to add coaching elements to it right now. So some of the P visa criteria. So if you've competed in major league teams in the past, so the Monster Jam competition in the United States is also internationally, and that pro athlete was in the Monster Jam competition in Sydney, and it's one of their tour stops. So I think you can make the argument there. The evidence would be probably an article. In this one, it's pro athlete wins debut in Monster Jam under Monster Truck Magazine, date, and who it's the author. You need to have all that stuff in there. Um, the national team is he's a member of the Australian national team in the Monster Truck World Championships. Evidence could be, again, articles, stats, and things like that. Collegiate university teams that he competed in intercollegiate competition in the United States doesn't exist in Monster Truck, so he doesn't have that. And so there's no evidence there. We talked about his sponsor being Ford Motor Company, Feld Motor Goods, and others could be there. But let's go back into the things. If he's ranked in the Monster Truck rankings internationally, those count. We put please obtain proof. So typically the Monster Truck World Rankings would be a link on a website that would show that. And any honors. So the fact he won the Australian Jam would be an honor if he was ever named Australia Truck Pilot of the Year. That would be an award. Now, you don't always have those things. Sometimes honor might be to a team. If they have a critical connection to the team, you can use that. You can use some statistical analysis to support it. You can use one of the criteria for the P is a governing body letter. So if the governing body of sports, which again would be probably Feld Motorsports, or Australia's governing body for monster trucks, would write a letter indicating that. And another is experts. So using experts to do this is really critical. Thank you. An expert is, let's talk about what an expert is. An expert is not somebody that has a vested interest, right? So it can't be the group that wants to hire him or the team you work for or company you work for. You shouldn't have somebody that worked for him either. They need to be independent. They can know him. They just shouldn't have a vested interest. So that expert, what you want to use an expert is to evaluate the evidence and then state why the evidence through the perspective of the expert makes sense, right? So USCIS doesn't know what's important, what's not important, and an expert can help them with that. More importantly, if you're just saying it to USCIS, then they could just disagree with you. If an expert says it, it's evidence, and that's under a case called BSTEC. That's a Supreme Court's case. It wasn't an immigration case, but the Supreme Court held that an expert, even without supporting evidence, their opinion is evidence, right? So think about it like this. USCIS doesn't have experts. If you have an expert and that expert can say, this is why he meets the criteria of this or this, they have to take it seriously. And if they don't, you can sue them. And it would be, we won a lawsuit on the O1 or the EB1 visa category, extraordinary ability, because we had expert testimony and they didn't even discuss it in their denial, right? And if they had tried to say that the expert wasn't good enough, we could have got him. But the fact that they didn't discuss it whatsoever made it a slam dunk case, and they reopened and issued the EB1 for our client in that. So great use of experts. So that's kind of the P1 strategically. If I can take you in my software,
Yeah, John, just going back really quick to
yeah,
experts, is that,
yeah.
I mean, in criminal justice, they also use experts on the stand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Experts that basically are evidence. Is that why also, is it similar to immigration where an expert says, this is how it is because I'm an expert in my field? How do you find these experts when someone comes to you and wants to work with your firm? Is it a hard process, or can you guys assist with access to experts in the field?
Fantastic question, Pierre. I'm going to take us out of this, back to this. Fantastic question. So experts often will come from the beneficiary or petitioner, right? Like they're in the industry, especially in sports. They're going to know. So let's talk about who an expert would be. So in the P visa, an opinion of a governing body official is one of the criteria. An opinion of an expert is another one of the criteria. So a governing body official is an expert too, but what's another expert? So an expert can be somebody who's a recognized athlete or coach. They could also be a member of the sports media that covers it. They could be another governing body official. Maybe they're even an agent. Somebody that has knowledge is going to be good enough to be an expert. I've never seen anybody say this person's not really an expert. Now, I've never put up an expert that wasn't an expert, but the criteria is not hard to get there, and I've never seen USCIS do it. Now, there are some federal law that talk about qualifying somebody as an expert in a trial, and if you really want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, follow that. What makes that person an expert, and it's basically going to be on longevity. Now, you want to support their expertise with their resume and things like that. But then once you've gotten the expert, then what you want the expert to do is evaluate each piece of evidence and then state in their opinion how that piece of evidence meets the criteria. And what they should look at is the plain language of the regulation and the policy that USCIS has issued in its policy manuals to say, here's the considerations or factors on whether or not this thing's there. And then look at those factors and then explain why they meet it. Now, what could that be? So an expert can do a couple things. An expert's trying to say that somebody is really good at a sport. An expert can evaluate video, right? And the expert can say, here's why this person is one of the better players in the competition or in the country or whatever, right? And they can break it down and use their knowledge on why what they're doing is impressive, right? And that's the key way to use one. But so finding the expert. Now, if you do enough of this, you may know experts, and those experts might be willing to do this for a fee or for free. I mean, some of them are willing to do that, but just finding somebody that has that knowledge. And then the best thing to do is work with them and help them draft it, as opposed to just telling your client, go get expert letters. If you do that, you're often going to come back with a lot of information about the expert and then little information about how that individual meets the criteria. They may say why they're good, but why you're good is not the P visa. For example, just talking to a rugby coach today, he's coached at the highest level of a lot of different professional teams, but that's not one of the criteria. Criteria is being in a national team in international competition, right? That's different. An expert opinion. Well, okay, what's the expert opinion need to say? So, think about that. Really know the regulations, look at the policy, and have the expert look at the evidence and support it in how, with their opinion and their perspective, it meets the criteria. Give them something special. Don't just say an award's an award. This award's a good award or a very impressive award because it's limited to these people. Here's some background on how hard it is to do that. Some things like that. What would an expert know that the adjudicator themselves can't tell by just looking at it?
Excellent. Thank you, John. So we do have about 8 minutes left in today's collab webinar. I think if we could give as much value in this second chapter of the P visa, where would you like to go?
There's a couple different types of P visas. You should know that, right? So there's a P visa for what's called an internationally recognized athlete. And those are almost always the individuals, right? So a marathoner or a mountain biker or a kayaker is going to have to show international recognition. Tennis players, those are all them. The pro athlete is a P visa too, and it's for players that are on teams that are in competition of at least 6 other teams with combined revenues in excess of $10 million. And you have to show, there's some things that come down. You got to show more than just a letter. You're going to have to show the tax returns of the teams to get there, and that can be difficult. And some teams aren't there for a while, right? You may have an emerging sport. So, we've done that with a number of competitions where they're not at the $10 million or we haven't received information for the $10 million. So we'll do that. If we think we're close or we've met the competition level, we might do a 2-prong brief where international recognition plus the professional athlete standard. That way, if they're a bubble international athlete, they meet it over the other one, or if the evidence isn't clear enough that they meet the 10 million and you got an accountant that says it does, then maybe they just approve it. So that's a strategy that we've used in the past for that. So that's important. I talked a little bit about the agent-based petition, right? So an
Yeah.
agent is available for O's and P's, and we've done that a lot, right? So that way, and they can have these other streams of income if they're being endorsement deals really for the P. For the O, it can include coaching. It can include other things that are in the industry. So those are, I think, important. Is that spurring more questions
Oh
for you?
yeah. Yeah, John. I'll ask you a follow-up question that I'm sure a lot of people have. Agents, does that mean that I have to now also add as a petitioner, I have to go and find an agent to manage me, you know?
Excellent question. So that actually question has been asked and answered some years ago, where USCIS for a very short period of time said the agents had to be in the business of being agents, right? And then they decided, no, that's not necessary. It's an agent for immigration purposes. So that agents can be one of the three employers, right? They could be the main employer. And then to order to do an agent based, you have to get acknowledgement that from the other direct employers that you can serve as an agent for them for this visa, and it has to have a contract with each of the direct employers. So it can't just be a letter saying we're going to hire them, which they do in other immigration cases, but a contract. I like contracts better than letters. A contract is an agreement between two parties. Contracting is pretty simple, really. It's a contract law says offer, acceptance, and consideration. So what does that mean? That means it's between two parties. The offer is here's how much you're going to get paid. The duties need to be in there that you're going to compete and do these things. That could also include you're going to promote the team, wear patches or shirts or a particular type of shoe or stuff like that, a racket, whatever it is. And those are your terms, and then signed by both parties. That's a contract, right? A letter is just telling USCIS what you're going to do. So it's not as binding, and it doesn't meet the agent based one. It will if you're doing a P just for a particular team or company.
Very well. Wonderful. When it comes to taking this process and moving forward, what is the timeline that someone is looking at? Is it about how prepared they are with all this, information, or is it something that, on average you can give someone the process of how long it takes to prepare when they work through firms?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think most lawyers, it's going to take a few weeks to do these things. There's a lot that goes into them. What my team does is it researches coaches or athletes online and sees what they can find. But, it doesn't have is contracts that they've had with teams. Certain awards aren't obvious. Just really understanding them isn't there. So it's always smart. We have strategy questions. We do this thing right here, or we take that platform I just showed you, the Visas.AI platform, and go through, meet the criteria, and then we send it out to our clients so they can add things. What I'll do is I'll sign a case manager that's a paralegal to talk to them and get things from them. Sometimes we'll find that they don't have contracts, and we help draft contracts, or we'll talk to their expert and we'll draft expert letters for their experts and help write the brief. So we'll need schedules, things like that, or all go into this. So they can be put together pretty quickly, a matter of weeks a lot of times, but sometimes they drag on when we're waiting for things. Immigration for regular processing is about 3 months, but you could easily say that could be 6 or even longer sometimes. Sometimes the last question is called request for evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to respond to those. Premium processing is eligible or is available for P visas. Premium processing is a 15 business day criteria, so it's usually 3 weeks to expect that from when they receive it. But that's an additional $2,508 filing fee. But if you really need to get somebody in quickly, use it. As opposed to waiting 3 to 6+ months.
Very, very good. Last question for today, John. How long is a P visa usually valid for? And how does the renewal look like?
They can be good up to 5 years, and they can kind of be renewed over and over. And it's a pretty cool visa, and it can lead you to the EB1 green card. A lot of people think only the O1 can go there, but it's not true. You can go from the P1 to the EB1. A lot of high level pro athletes do that. Ps have a lower standard than an O, so and especially the major sports, they crank them out really quickly. A lot of times, non attorneys do those. You really, it's pretty sophisticated when it comes to the internationally recognition arguments, but the pro athlete arguments not as complicated.
Well, thank you so much, John. For anyone watching, again, this is not legal advice, even if it's coming from an attorney. I think it would be great for anyone interested to have a one-on-one strategy session with John and his team. And I love that you guys use strategy session because it's not a consultation. It's way, way more than that. You basically walk away with a lot of things
Yeah.
and a plan about your journey. John, where can people find you if they're interested in a session?
Do you still have the I think you have a flyer for us, but
Oh yes, yes.
yeah,
We'll put it there.
onlinevisas.com is our website. That gives you a great overview of immigration. VLElaw.com is about our firm, which is more about us, but online visa, both of them have information on each visa. We have a YouTube channel for online visas that has lots of videos. Those can also be found on onlinevisas.com. You can email me at john@vlelaw.com, which is JON at V as in Victor. It's right there. VLelaw.com. You can see that information at VLelaw.com. Hits a number of members of my team. That's a little better because they can help schedule a strategy session if you want to talk. Yeah, that's how they get us.
Very well. Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll catch you then next week at the same time for another follow up, another chapter about the P visas. And if anyone is watching us or listening to the podcast form and there's a visa type that we're not covering in our podcast, feel free to let us know. We're always looking for recommendations on what to cover next. And with that, thank you very much, Attorney Jon Velie.
Thanks, Pierre. Take
Thanks.
care.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.